Okay, so we'll take a look at these units. I have an old one. I think this is quite old. I suspect this is the one that I saw maybe last year. Did a bit of testing on it, just a quick look at that stage, and sent it back or brought it back with me, and then it got sent back again with a couple of other factories units. I don't know if this is the identical unit. It's the same design anyway. This one's the new one that we picked up at the factory, supposedly with new chip. So it looks to me as though the toolings are identical. No obvious, I'm not sure identical toolings, but definitely the same design. There may be some kind of giveaway mark on one of the toolings. You can see if it is actually the same mold. Hard to pick up. Same design in any case. This old unit, slightly different padding. The headband there is got a pleat to it, and I noticed also that the air pad is got a slightly different shape. Okay, it's basically the same air pad, but maybe the stitching on the newer one is done a bit more tidy. It looks a bit better in any case. Same thickness. This one's headband pad doesn't have the pleat. Okay, these are sort of trivial differences. So we won't worry too much about that, but the fold up and everything seems to be okay. Well, it doesn't have the greatest fold up geometry, but that's how it goes. You can try and do that style, one rotated, one folded up to pack it down, or just stacked fold up, I guess. Lie flat is always good too. Yeah, the slides, these sort of things, these details are not the best. It doesn't have a real pro feel to it. Functional though, it's how it is. It's a fairly standard slider caliper design. I see that all the time, with a rubber piece there, cables going through the middle of it. These little screw-on terminations on the pad. Let's have a look-see in there. It's got a metal hinge there, which gives us, which I guess means it makes it small enough but still strong enough. Feels okay on that front. Yeah, you could twist that off. Ultimately, there's a piece of plastic holding it. See if we can get a gizzer in there. No, we'd have to unscrew that to see what's going on in there. The cable there, well, hard to say, but you can just assume. What about if you fold that and then pull it out? Do you get shorter? Try and pull it out to the max and then rotate that. It's probably got enough sort of slack in the cable to handle it. So that side of it is okay. And this old one, yeah, it's all identical design. Not bad, not bad. Not super high end, but there's nothing strictly speaking wrong with it. So let's give a test of, well, first up I'll test the frequency response anyway and compare those. ANC is off. So we'll run it through the Bluetooth. There may be some EQ because we are using the Bluetooth. It's the powered part of it. May or may not be EQ on it. We'll start that going. I press and hold, and then when this light comes on, it means that the test will just repeat, so I can just play around and take units on and off and compare. Get our left and right's right. This one actually, the ear pad's around the wrong way. This left is actually the right. I can tell because it's got the angle to it. That's the right hand side shape. Oh, hang on, is it? Yeah. It's angled that way, so it's for your right ear, but it's got the left ear pad. Maybe someone, maybe even me, swapped the ear pads over sometime in the past. I don't remember. Trivial problem. Anyway, that is left and right, around the right way. Good. Let's have a look at our curve. Yep, that's pretty much the standard looking curve for this type of thing. Big bass hill, mid-range is low, and then high frequencies are up again. Nothing too much to say about it at this stage. It's not really great, but it's okay. If you had it EQ, you could definitely do something to improve it, try and flatten out that range, etc. But that's that may or may not be available. Good. So that I'm going to store these. I've got an SD card in there. So this is the ANC off. I'll just save it like that. What I'll do is just put a hold on that curve. Now I'll switch the ANC on. Yep, and pretty much as expected, it changes the response quite a bit. That's the effect of feedback ANC. Now you could compensate it or EQ it out to make them, the on and off state the same through Bluetooth at least, because you have a powered system, you have some EQ ability. They haven't done that. They may be not for a reason, or it's just no customer has driven them to do it. Maybe their Bluetooth chip doesn't have that ability. I don't know. You can do it with passive components to some extent. A couple of blips in the mid-range there. That will sound a bit nasty, and I think that's a consequence of the feedback ANC. It has that effect where at some point you get an increase in level, a little blip there. And I think I mentioned before, I thought that they'd try to overtune it to get a kind of a high dB figure. In the process, they sacrifice some quality, let's say, or some smoothness to it. There may be scope to just say, just don't push it too hard, and tune the ANC down a little bit, and those blips go down, and you end up fairly flat. So I'll grab a store on that one, just in case we want to do some overlays or something later on. Okay, good. So that's the old unit. That's the original one, whatever it is, AMS chip, I think they said. I'm not sure about that. Switch that off. You'll get the new one into the game. Switch it on. ANC off. Put on. Oh, I have to actually hold it down until it goes into pairing mode. Slightly different UI to the other ones, where you just press it until it says power on and then let it go. If it connects to something else, you double tap it to kill that connection. This one, you have to start from powered off, press it and hold it and keep it held down until it goes into pairing mode. And looks like we're going to connect up there. Good. And so ANC off is pretty much the same. If I was to really scrutinize the details, so it looks like the mid-range has a bit of difference. Okay, now I don't know if that's the kind of variability that you get just between product by product basis, or it's got different drivers, or whatever the reason could be. They do have this kind of imbalance that we often see in products that don't have dedicated acoustic chambers, so there's differences between the left and the right side, and you see like the dip on the orange and the dip on the blue are shifted in frequency, kind of like the pop is, or all of them for that matter. It's, it's not super hi-fi stuff, so what do you say? That's just life. Okay, good. What I'll do actually is I'll do the comparison with this one, so I'll switch the whole curve to this one, ANC off, then we'll put the ANC on. Yeah, it is actually got quite a bit of different characteristic to the ANC on of the old one. I'll switch that off so I don't waste the battery, and I don't know what to say. I think that's going to sound worse, to be honest. See, their high frequencies are down. I remember this ANC on, it had a bit of high frequency boost and so on. Maybe there's changes to the circuit, maybe there's scope to get them to modify some component values to play around with the EQ a little bit. That looks a bit rough though, to be honest. I'll have a listen properly and see what we think about it subjectively, but just objectively looking at the curve and what I know about looking at curves, I'd say it is it's going to sound a bit bad. So you've got far too much in this 300-400 hertz range, which it makes things sound middly, telephony style. You really don't want to have that. You want to be as flat as possible there, all the way from say from 100 hertz would be good, or 200 hertz flat up to your high frequencies, which always have this resonance thing. It's having a little go there. You've got a volume control here too. We can pump it up and down. So I can actually get the high frequency. Okay, the exact shape of the high frequency is depending on the headphone and the artificial air. But these are very identical, so one would think that it's the same driver having really the same characteristic of the high frequency. So we can tweak the volume up and down on that if we like, which is good. So we could actually get them to line up. Yes, I'll actually I'll just go back to the ANC off because I forgot to save that curve with the ANC off. Well, I'll get the volume the same, which is down one more click. Okay, good. Just save that graph, and it's actually saving the raw data, which I can play with if need be, import it to something else, and then we'll put the ANC on. Yeah, so there's no need to have the high frequencies down. I mean, you've got an active system. You've got power. You could EQ that if you wanted to. We'll save that anyway. Save that one too. Okay, good. So that's fine. Let's take a look at the ANC now. So I'll go and select down here somewhere ANC manual. I think I've got my amplifier switch. No, I haven't switched that on. Let's see what we've got for level. Should be about right. So I'll start with it switched off. Then switch it on. It's the frequency response, which would actually be running through the. It's just set up to run through the cable. I'll plug a cable in actually because we didn't look at that. And you've got a peak of 20 there. Of course, this is the total. It should actually be dp log of hertz. Hard to explain, but this is more of a total figure, so we can remember that. It's about 16 minus 15, whatever. A little bit of variation, pretty good. It's clean and tidy. The overshoot on this one, and the audio response, this is the new one, did look to be a little bit nasty right around there, and you can see it is bumped up a little bit. Let's we'll come back to the frequency response, but we'll compare this one now. I saved that. Actually, I'll store that data. I saved the curve. I made a hold on this curve, so we'll see an overlay. ANC off. Start the test. And then switch it on. It's fairly similar, I guess, although, yeah, there's a bit of a difference in the acoustic system, it looks like. I'll just run that one again because the left and right is not all that the same. So interesting the way they say they're pretty much the same, although it looks to be the bandwidth is quite a bit lower on the new one. I'll switch it off because I don't want to forget about it and waste the battery. Power off that thing. Is that one still on? No. Just give it a bit of a tweak. I'll, get another measurement to make sure everything is nice and tidy. Switch it on. Yeah, that's what it is. So this is the old one. It has a bit more ANC. The width is a bit wider. You can see it's reaching up to more like 500 hertz as opposed to sort of 400 hertz for the old one. Probably in terms of your perception of it, there would not be much difference. But if you're measuring strictly, you'd say, yes, this actually has slightly more ANC. Again, it could be just a factor of variation in between products, sample to sample. Nothing's perfect. But okay, pretty similar, just as Gaffy said, they're pretty much the same. Let's plug in that cable and see what we get for a passive frequency response. We can compare the on-off through the cable too. I'll store that one too before I forget. I'm still on the old one. We'll plug you in. You got the line in running there, and here we go. Switch it on. Yep, and I'll get rid of that whole curve so it's not so messy. There's your two frequency responses. It looks very, very similar to the Bluetooth curve shape. I just remember it. So that tells me essentially that there's no EQ going on for the Bluetooth as well. So whether you use line-in or Bluetooth, you get the same thing. Okay. Maybe the Bluetooth doesn't have that sort of EQ ability. I guess the same is going to be for the new one. We'll give that a try too. Start with the ANC off. it on. Yep, same story. I just remember those are, it's the same characteristic of curve shape for Bluetooth or cable, and the same thing happens between ANC off and ANC on. So yeah, like ANC is working. The audio wise is not the greatest. It would be nice to have some ability to tidy that up a bit, more than a bit, tidy it up a lot. But what can you say? It's what's the word? It's kind of like baseline ANC, let's say. Peaked out at 20, you've got an aggregate of around the 15 range on the new one. Okay, the old one you get slightly more. The peak is only slightly higher, but you get a bit more width, so the total summation of ANC is a bit higher. I'd have to try and find, I'll put the speakers on maybe with some pink noise and just have a compare to see how much you can detect that difference. But there's our measurements. Let's see, anything else we want to just see about this? No, I think that's okay for now. Yeah, it's a pass. You can say it passes. It passes. All depends on the price too. At the right price, that's great. It's fine. The reliability's probably pretty good actually. It'll have a metal headband in there and everything. So good. Okay. Enjoy. Actually, just a bit of follow-up. So I had a bit of a listen to some music, and I'd have to say that, okay, the old unit, we saw that it had those, I'll go back and just measure it again. We saw that it had those peaks in the mid-range, and turns out they do sound pretty bad with ANC on. So ANC off, they're both effectively the same. It's okay, it's not too bad. I could listen to it. It wouldn't be my pick of headphones, but it's not painful or uncomfortable to listen to. It does the job. With ANC on, this older unit actually really I find it a bit irritating because of that mid-range peak. I just find that to be, I don't mind if it's not got fantastic bass or highs, as long as it's not just uncomfortable to listen to. And I thought that this older unit, okay, with this peak and this peak, was actually just uncomfortable, a little bit painful to listen to. Whereas the newer one, again, it wasn't fantastic audio, but at least it wasn't uncomfortable to listen to. So in that regard, I'd have to say that the new one actually is probably better. Just, I mean, it's one man's opinion, okay, but probably better just in terms of not being quite so brutal to listen to. Highs a bit lower. Yeah, I don't know how to. It's just a subjective thing. It still looks like it would be peaky. Maybe it's that the balance of it is different. So, and yeah, so the new one, neither of them are fantastic with ANC on. It's definitely a weak point audio with ANC on, but at least this one I just didn't find it to be painful. I just wanted to check one more thing. Okay, just in terms of an SPL mean, this one's running at it's got a volume control. Okay, doesn't matter. 97, yeah, about 97.5 with ANC on. And with ANC off, still about the same. So if we take this overall balance, we're getting it's up by maybe 1 dB or half a dB. So in terms of setting the SPL level, it's kind of magically going to work out fairly close without having to fight too hard with the EQ, because the overall loudness is reasonably much the same. I'll check this one in a second, and well, not in a second, right now. Power off you, power on with you. Yeah, this is ANC on 98. Call it 98. ANC off. It's down at 95, so maybe that's part of it. The total level jumps quite a bit on this old unit, so gets screechy. This new one is the new chip. I suspect it's got nothing to do with the chip. I think there's other variations going on, maybe change of driver or change of circuit a little bit. That's making all the difference. But that one's staying. The total SPL balance between ANC on and off is more or less the same. So that's handy. Let's say that's handy. One more thing is just have a look at the passive isolation. So I'll just run that ANC style test again. We'll do, with the ANC switched off, no headphone, and with a headphone. And we don't care about that. And there we go. So up to about 200 hertz, there's nothing. You get a bit of addition on these ones. That's what I felt. I took it on a plane once, and if you put it on with no ANC, it just gets slightly louder. It's kind of a cheat's way of doing ANC, but anyway, that's what it is. That's fine. And a fairly even slope all the way down to sort of minus 30, something like that. At 1K, say minus 15. Not much. It's not that great. You could normally get something in passive at the high frequencies down to more minus 40, minus 50. So be it. We'll try this one. I'll hold that curve. And the ANC is still off on the. Oh, this is the new chip one. Okay, this is the old one. Yeah, it's a bit of an acoustics difference there. So this is actually slightly better than. They've made some other changes. Fair enough. But otherwise fairly similar. What can you say? Okay, that'll do it. Thanks.